Hello Stampers! I've got a really great project to share with you today, and I'm calling it Highlighted Emboss Resist. How pretty is that? I made a whole set of these with our new ink colors. We've got Lost Lagoon, Hello Honey, Tangelo Twist, Mossy Meadow, and Blackberry Bliss. All of these turned out just gorgeous. Okay, let's get started. Today I'm using the Corner Garden stamp set. This is a big background stamp set. So I have the clear version here. And I'm just going to lay down a piece of typing paper to protect my area. I'm using Versamark ink. So I'm just going to ink up my background stamp. And I've got a piece of Whisper white cardstock that is 4 by 5 1/4. And I want to make sure that I get this top little flower bud on my card. So I'm going to put my cardstock up a little further. The other thing you want to be careful of is make sure that your images are going off the edge so you don't have a big line there. I'm using just another typing weight piece of paper folded in half so that I don't get Versamark ink all over my hands. There we go. I know this is probably really hard to see, but believe me, it's there. And next we're going to come in with clear embossing powder. And I'm just going to dump it on my card, tap it back into my container. I've got about 2 or 3, probably 3 containers of the embossing powder in this dish, and I just leave it in here with the spoon. It works better for me than trying to pour it out of the little tub. Make sure you cover really good. Then I always kind of like to look at it to make sure I've got a little dusting of embossing powder right here. I'm just going to get rid of that before I go to heat set it. And we're going to turn on our heat tool. Hold your paper, and you have to let it heat up a little bit before it gets going, and you'll notice that your image will start to turn clear or shiny if you tilt it up in the light. And I know this is really hard to see, so just believe me that this is working. Some people like to wave their heat tool around. You don't have to do that. And if you tilt it to the side like I'm doing, you can see it melting the embossing powder, which makes it a little easier to know when you're done. You really want to make sure that you get everything heat set, because what we're going to do next will wipe off any powder that isn't heat set. Okay, now I'm going to tilt it up in the light, make sure I've got everything melted, and it looks good. Okay. On to the fun part. One thing I forgot to tell you. Before you get started on all of this, and I'm sorry, I do this every time I make this card, it's a really good idea to stamp your greeting in the corner first, because if you happen to get that crooked or it's not a good image, you haven't done all the rest of this work. So stamp this first, hello, and then if you mess that up, you can turn it over and try again. So I'm using Lost Lagoon ink and the Perfect Pennants stamp set. I just love the font on all of these. I'm using Life Doesn't Have to Be Perfect to Be Wonderful. Okay, so I've done that. Now what I'm going to do is bring in my Lost Lagoon ink and my Stampin' Sponge here. And I'm going to just very lightly apply some color in a circular motion. And I'm just doing that over my entire embossed images. At first, when I first put my sponge into my ink, I have a very light touch on here. I don't want to have color really, really super dark. This is supposed to be a very light, soft card. Okay, so now that I've got everything looking beautiful there, I went back in and created this highlighted technique. So I'm going to just highlight some of my bigger flowers here, I should just say some of my flower images because I do the smaller ones too, with a little more ink. And I just thought this really made them pop out of my card. Now when I get up here to these smaller flowers, I'm going to dip my sponge corner in there and pinch it and just add my color to these smaller images. Don't get too picky on this. There's no exact science to using a sponge. It's not a paintbrush. And there we have these that kind of pop out at you. Just a little bit of a different look. Okay, now if you find that your ink is sticking to your clear embossing powder, one thing you can do is bring in a tissue and just polish it. And that'll pull a little bit of the ink off the embossing powder and really make that white pop. Okay. Next, I needed some embellishments on my card. It's beautiful, but I just needed a little bit more. So one thing that I did was I took my Beautiful Wings Butterfly Embosslet, and I'm going to use 2 of the smaller butterflies on here. And we're going to run this through our Big Shot. Let me put my embossing powder away before I fly that everywhere. Has anybody ever done that? I have. Okay, you want to make sure when you use these sizzlets, it says place this side down. I never knew why, and I thought, oh, that doesn't matter. But your paper will come out of there better when you place that side down. I did find that out recently. And then your hinges, you always want them to run through your machine on the side, never first and never last, because you can see when you do that, it creates a little bit too much stress with all that weight going on there at once, where this way it just goes little bit by little bit. And your hinges will last a long time. And believe me, this sizzlet has been used a gazillion times. A gazillion. Okay, so we've got that run through. And this is going to cut out and emboss, dry emboss, my butterflies. And see how easy that comes out of there? So I'm going to use this butterfly and this butterfly. And then of course, once you get that, you can't throw the other one away that's left here. You'll put that back so you can use it on something later, right? We're kind of hoarders, aren't we? Okay, I like to use glue, liquid glue, for card making. It just works really good for me. I'm going to take these butterflies, I'm going to bend them in half just a little bit, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue there and glue one side down. And you can see that kind of gives you the 3D effect of the other one kind of sticking up there. And then I'll put another little pop of glue right here for my tiny one. You want to make sure you use little tiny bits of glue. That works best. And again, I'm going to fold my little butterfly so that it gives it a little 3D dimension. And I'm going to, whoops, I'm going to set this down in there with the other wing. Maybe. And maybe not. Oh, here we go. So my butterflies kind of go in the opposite direction here. Okay, very pretty. I like those embellishments. And then one last thing I wanted to do was add some pearls. And I wanted to add a strip of 3 pearls. So if you're going to make a bunch of these cards, you can take your little scissor snips and snip in between and break that adhesive line that keeps your pearls together. And then you can just pick up all 3 of them at once like that. Kind of a nifty little tip, and it makes life a little easier. There we go. I'm coming in with my card base here. Again, we're using Lost Lagoon. And here's my bone folder. Give that a nice crisp fold. A little bit of glue here. You can see how little glue I use. My cards never fall apart, so you don't need much. Put that on our card front. And then I needed to do something for the inside. So here's what I came up with. I'm going to take my Corner Garden background stamp. I'm going to clean it off here, get that Versamark ink off of there. And I'm just patting it down with an alcohol-free baby wipe. This works best with the big background stamps. And then I'm going to come in with my Lost Lagoon ink. And I'm just going to stamp up this top edge here. And for my inside layer, I just want this image on the corner. So you're going to make sure you, again, bring your cardstock in so that the images are running over the edge here. So if I can find my paper so I don't get my fingers all full of ink. Rub that with a nice flat hand. And voila. Whoops, voila. Okay, put the rest of our card together here. And who would you give this card to? Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. You could give this to just about anybody. It's just kind of a general greeting. It's a nice little saying. It doesn't have to pertain to anything, or maybe somebody's having a hard time with something. That would make a nice card to just send them and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. You know, I hope things get better, or thanks for a great weekend, or whatever. So there we go. We've got all these beautiful different colors. I just love the way these turned out. Even the green, I was a little skeptical on green and green flowers, but that turned out beautiful. I did notice when I did this one that my ink really wanted to stick to my embossed images. So this is definitely one that you want to rub off with a tissue. I've got all the insides stamped on here. And what a beautiful card. Thanks for stamping with me.